Is India bad at being China? Over the last century, many ideas shaped the global political economy. One of the most prominent was globalization. When a financial crisis hit India in the early 1990s, the government introduced the new economic policy of 1991, which leaned heavily on these growing global trends. Since then, globalization has only gained momentum. One way to see this is by looking at exports as a share of the world's GDP. In the 1990s, exports made up about 15% of global GDP. Today, that number is closer to 25%. Many countries have benefited from this shift, but it seems like things might have gone a bit too far. Source: worldandData.org. Between the 1990s and 2008, the world entered what the World Economic Forum calls a phase of hyperglobalization. But then came a series of shocks: the 2008 financial crisis, trade wars, frustrated middle classes in developed countries, and growing concerns about relying too much on single trade partners. Together, these factors slowed globalization down to a trickle, a phase often called slowbalization. Source: World Economic Forum. Now, we are seeing a shift toward deglobalization. The COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, widening ideological divides, and the global push for greener economies have made governments and companies rethink their reliance on overseas suppliers. Many are now focusing on building at home or working only with trusted partners to ensure stability. This trend is visible everywhere. In India, it's called Atmanirbhar Bharat. In the European Union, it's known as strategic autonomy. In the United States, it's framed as America First. Different names, but the same idea, focusing on self-reliance and closer partnerships. This shift is bringing significant changes both at home and on the global stage. Today, we want to take a closer look at India's approach to this transformation. India has plenty of reasons to strengthen its self-reliance, with energy being one of the most important. We are one of the world's biggest markets for crude oil and solar panels, yet we still depend heavily on imports. Another key area is electronics and semiconductors, where the government's efforts are starting to make a real impact. Thanks to programs like the Scheme for Promotion of Manufacturing of Electronic Components and Semiconductors, SPECS, the India Semiconductor Mission, and partnerships with global companies, we've made great progress. In fact, we are now producing enough electronics to meet most of our own needs. On top of that, our exports of electronic products have nearly tripled between FY22 and FY24. Source: Statista. A big part of this growth comes from smartphones. Just last year, headlines proudly announced that India was assembling 1 out of every 7 iPhones, a milestone we covered in the Daily Brief. With the launch of the iPhone 16, Indian-made iPhones hit global shelves on the same day as those made in China. For the first time, India also produced the Advance Pro and Pro Max models. This shows that Foxconn, Apple's contract manufacturer, is gaining confidence in India as a manufacturing hub and even sees it as a potential alternative to China. Naturally, China isn't happy. Losing business to a rival, especially one they're not on great terms with, is tough for anyone. A report from rest of the world claims that Chinese staff are struggling to get visas to work at Foxconn's India plants, and those already stationed here are being called back. There are also rumors that shipments of specialized equipment are being delayed. Apple and Foxconn haven't confirmed any of this, so it's worth taking with a grain of salt. But if these claims are true, they could seriously disrupt India's mobile manufacturing progress. The bigger issue here is the importance of knowledge and technology transfer for any growing industry. India hasn't been making iPhones for very long, while Foxconn's teams in China have had years of experience perfecting the process. For India to succeed, Foxconn will need to share that expertise with its Indian teams. That's exactly how China became the factory of the world. They welcomed foreign companies to set up operations there, offering cheap labor, but only on the condition that technology transfer took place locally. If India wants to achieve true Atmanirbharta, self-reliance, it will need to follow a similar strategy. If these reports about China blocking technology transfer are true, it's a challenge India will have to tackle head-on. Overcoming it will be crucial for building a strong and competitive manufacturing industry. We've seen a similar story play out in the US as well. Determined to reduce its dependence on foreign semiconductors, America, ironically, the birthplace of semiconductors, watched its share of global manufacturing capacity shrink from 37% in 1990 to just 10% by 2022. This happened largely because other countries invested heavily in chip manufacturing incentives, while the US government didn't. To turn things around, Washington passed the CHIPS Act, convinced TSMC to invest $65 billion, and secured a commitment from them to build 3 semiconductor factories, fabs, in the US by the end of the decade. But progress has been slow. It's only recently that the first fab has finally gone live after facing several delays, mostly due to a shortage of skilled workers. The US had to rely on Taiwanese experts to set up the processes, but it seems the worst of those challenges is now behind them. All in all, while many countries want to move toward deglobalization, the reality is that they still need foreign partners. Our economies are so deeply interconnected that going it alone isn't easy. If India wants to follow in China's footsteps and become largely self-reliant, it will have to play the same game China did. That means negotiating, or even pushing, for technology transfers. Without that, the dream of true self-reliance could slip away. Technology and expertise are essential to building industries that can stand on their own. If we want to make this vision a reality, we'll need to learn from others and bring their knowledge here. Tidbits. Zomato and Swiggy are in the spotlight for their private label ventures, Bistro for Zomato and Snack for Swiggy. Industry groups like the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Associations of India, FHRAI, and the National Restaurant Association of India, NRAI, have raised concerns that these services may be using data from partner restaurants to promote their own products. They're also worried about food safety and unfair competition. This issue might soon reach the Commerce Ministry and the Competition Commission of India, CCI. Coal India is exploring lithium brine assets in Argentina. It's partnering with Indian Rare Earths Limited, IREL, to secure critical minerals. This is a big step for India's renewable energy goals, as it helps Coal India reduce its dependence on fossil fuels. Accessing lithium and other essential minerals will also give the company a strong foothold in the growing green economy. The Indian rupee recently hit a record low of 86 rupees against the US dollar. This drop is mainly due to foreign investors pulling out their money and the dollar's strong performance. A weaker rupee is a mixed bag. It benefits exporters because their goods become cheaper overseas, making imports more expensive. This drives up inflation, making everyday life costlier for households. Businesses are feeling the pinch too, as the higher cost of importing raw materials puts more pressure on their expenses and affects overall market sentiment.